This podcast is recorded on Aboriginal land. We pay our respects to elders past and present and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. Welcome back to the Radical Online Leftist Pipeline podcast. I'm Mitch Alexander.
I'm Celeste Little.
I'm Purple Fingers. We got the order kind of right.
Yeah, we got the order mostly right, but in true scrappy left-wing fashion, one of our fucking co-hosts, Tom Taneke, is already not on this podcast because he's out. Jordan's not even at home. The whole thing, it's a mess, but it's great. But no, our other co-host, like I said, Tom Taneke, is out this week. He is off writing truly heinous and perverted fan fiction about the New York shooter. It's some of the worst shit you'll ever read. But like everyone else, the imagination has been captured by this young man in New York who blew away a healthcare CEO and who no one seems to care about the CEO, which like is not helped by the fact that now we think the shooter was real fucking hot. Like, imagine being done in by someone and the whole world goes, good, you're in hell now. And then any modicum of like justice in their view, or like legal justice at least, or anything, is wiped away by this guy's jawlines. You'd be fucking livid.
Just seeing the photos flood my feed today, it was actually rather amusing to see. And, you know, everyone's hot takes on how hot was kind of amusing. I guess, you know, for the last few days, in a way, it has been a bit amusing to see the constant memes about, all right, if anyone dobs, they're a class traitor or whatever else is going on. We've all seen them, but particularly, you know, the minute that the photos started coming and this guy's been arrested and everyone's like, oh yeah, here we go. Yeah. It was really bizarre, but it was kind of amusing. It was kind of amusing. But you know, there's also the pushback. People are reminding others just of how much bankruptcy has been caused in the US due to people trying to get healthcare and why people are actually kind of enjoying this moment in history. Like,
yeah,
it's anyway.
Yeah.
Hot shooter with his gun, with his 3D printed gun. Like, that was another thing. That was another thing, actually. Like, for those who don't know, I am the latest of Gen X, and all of a sudden I am finding out today that you can 3D print a gun, and I've got all these people 20 years younger than me telling me that, oh, people have been doing this for years, and I'm just sort of, what the hell? Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off, Jordan.
Oh, no, you didn't. I forgot what I was going to say.
Too distracted by his dreamy eyes, that chiseled jawline.
Who wouldn't be? The favourite Twitter meme that I saw was someone was saying, like, there was a screenshot and it was like, my brother hooked up with him at college, he's bi. And then someone, like, quote tweeted it and was like, the buys are racing back.
That's
so
fucking
good.
Sick. I've been thinking about this a lot, and just if people haven't seen as well, there's been a pretty infamous like Ben Shapiro. Not even a meme really, but Ben Shapiro did an episode about this guy and was trying to sell it as like the left, bringing violence to the streets of America, and this is terrible. And the entire comment section is going, "Shut the fuck up." You hang on. I know the comments are mixed between we don't care, we just want healthcare, fuck you, or oh, you're part of that class and you're scared.
Yeah, we know who you are now. This is not a bipartisan issue. This is not a divide amongst fucking political parties. This is a divide amongst class. Yeah. And even, like, the bad people, like the racists and stuff like that, will get that this is a good thing.
It's
no matter which side you're on.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's such a neat reminder that material conditions trump political ideology. You can believe whatever the fuck you want, but if your day-to-day life sucks shit and you feel miserable all the time, then a panacea to that is good. And everyone in America suffers from this shit. And we're starting to see it now in Australia. I saw something that was like, isn't it 10,000 new homeless people in Australia every fortnight or every month? Something like that. Like, even if it's every 6 months, that's fucking too many. But the fact that it's inside a month and our political class isn't doing anything about it. And this is what, like, in Australia, it's housing. In America, it's healthcare. In Britain, it's probably, the price of pasties or something. I don't know. They're weird over there. But it's the material conditions suck for people, and we know why, innately or otherwise. And it's just interesting that the right wing have been doing this whole like, oh, the elites are to blame, and then people going, well, he was an elite. Why are you defending him? And it's like, well, oh, wait, the elite's just moneyed interest and power, isn't it?
Yeah, you're one of them.
Yeah. But I hope the Justice Department, the legal system runs its course, and I hope he plays the full court, and I hope justice and law and order and all that stuff that'll keep me off a watch list.
I have already seen merch. I have already seen people.
I've already ordered merch. I've ordered merch with Jim. Like, me and Jim literally just ordered this shirt.
Oh my god!
Was that the deny, depose, or defend, depose?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah! I should get one.
I feel like never seen someone on the dole at a gun range. Like, that's not like, poor people can't afford guns in this country. Only the rich can afford guns. If we evened out that class divide and everyone had guns or everyone had no guns, excellent, fantastic. However, until we do that, everyone should be able to own a gun. If your oppressors all have guns.
The only thing is, though, like, I mean, I'm vacillating widely between this in my own personal life. I've been thinking, like, is a gun now an insurance policy in 20 years? I don't think I need one now. But looking at the state of the world, if things actually fall apart and I have one, then, it's better to have it, not need it, blah, blah, blah. But right now, fucking, I'd rather everyone get healthcare. And I think that, at least in Australia, it's going to be easier to fix the housing crisis than to make society not shit while everyone has a gun.
Exactly. So then get rid of everyone's guns.
Yes.
Like no gun license for the rich.
This is the thing. But I mean, but the rich here don't want guns either, because we've got a different type of culture. And another thing I've been grappling with for however long is, like, Howard got rid of guns and instantiated Australia Day as the national holiday in my lifetime. And I also think it's always been like that for, hundreds of thousands of years, or it's a force of nature. No, that's how quickly culture can change and sort of cement itself. But, I agree as well. Like, in principle, just no guns. That also, let's start with the cops. I reckon an easy thing would be, let's get rid of the cops' assault weapons for terrorism for a start, because those chuds don't need that. Then let's get rid of their pistols, right? Then we can maybe even get rid of their tasers, and we replace it with, like, noise devices that, like, play funny tunes. Because this is how you de-escalate situations, is you get people laughing. So they bring out a pistol, it's like, wah, 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 or something like that. And people are like, I don't need to be in this assault. That's the utopian communist future I want.
Well, there are across the world police forces that don't have guns. I'm pretty
the Met Police in London or whatever it is.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was, oh gosh, like, gun control and all that. I got to say, being in the left as long as I have, that was frequently the one concession point that many leftists gave Howard back in the day, which was, he fundamentally changed society, fucked everything, brought in some sort of uber nationalism that just normalized the situation where white blindfold history was taught, where we had fascism rising, was essentially Australia's version of Thatcher. Like, that's who I liken him with the most, as far as political legacies go, because he's still very much a part of what's happening in politics right now. But But the one concession was frequently gun control. But then, the gun lobby would argue against that as well, and have done so, stating that it's actually made it harder to pest control on farms, or similar sort of things like that. I guess I was pretty close to one of the last sort of gun violent things that hit the news big time in the 90s at La Trobe Uni. So yeah, it was the one concession, but I don't know if you can. Like, this is where my mind is really being blown right now as a middle-aged person thoroughly. I don't know if you can gun control when people can 3D print guns and can 3D print silencers. And did he 3D print those bullets as well with the little names on them? Because it's just blowing my mind. Like, that wasn't a problem that we had in the 90s when gun control came in. But yeah, it's it's a whole other world.
It's a brave new world that we're in. 3D. That's the other side of what Jordan was talking about. The problem is we can get healthcare for everyone, even Americans, before we can get rid of like guns fully. But we can also get 3D printed guns quicker than 3D printed healthcare. So we've got a conundrum. I don't have a fucking conundrum. I would say the CEOs and the politicians have a conundrum at this point, because you can either give us what we fucking need, not want, but fucking need, or you can suffer with the rest of us. And this is the big thing I come down to. We don't have to have violence to get what we want. We know what we want. We know what we need. We know how to get it. We also know the exact people who are not fucking giving it to us. Speaking of people not giving us the bare fucking minimum. Jordan, we had these Woolies strikes.
Yes.
Dedicated, long-time fans of the show will know that last episode, our first one, we talked about the Woolies strike that was happening on, Tuesday the 3rd. And then we released that on Tuesday the 10th, which is today we're recording. I'm going to start dating these so people know. Give us the update on the Woolies strike. What happened? Where are we at? Was it a win? I've got some personal anecdotes from the day as well, but what's the broad overview?
It's a tricky one. So workers on strike, absolutely, just always a good thing. And we had the community support, and that was excellent. But once it felt like, just speaking to the members there, that once the Fair Work Commission decided in Woolies' favour, the United Workers Union had no contingency plan. They didn't have an expectation on what should happen, and it should have been expected to fail because of it, like it being the most conservative kind of person on the Fair Work Commission. So there should have been a backup plan. There should have been an industrial plan, and it didn't feel like it was there. And so, like, Woolies gave an offer on whatever morning it was, I can't remember, or even the day before. It was better than the SDA one, but, like, still not what they wanted. Then Fair Work Commission, a decision is made, finds in Woolies' favour. Woolies immediately withdraws the offer, replaces it with the SDA agreement. With maybe like a minor change or something. I can't remember the details. And then, like, a lot of stuff happens. Like the big group picket didn't come. Apparently they were asked not to until after the decision, even though Woolies was ready to go with scabs immediately. Like,
I will just say on that, I do know of some people, this is not first-hand information, but do know that they didn't hear either way. Now, whether that was because it was like high leadership of one of those, some of the big unions, but I do know that there were, yet again, as you're talking about, people closer to the rank and file than the top were fucking there and ready to go. And a lot of different people at a lot of levels were fucking keen for it, that then just didn't get the go-ahead from whoever ultimately makes the decision.
Exactly, yeah. Like, yeah, my brother-in-law asked his organizer, hey, I want to be there, so make sure I'm on the list. And then, the decision was made. Woolies is ready to go. He never got a call, and I was like, hey, mate, guy from your union's going. You know this guy. You know anything about that? He was like, no, like no one's told me anything. So it was probably a bunch of unionists, like rank and file unionists, really keen to go, trying to organise something with like through the channel and just being unsuccessful.
Right. But sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to always making sure that the rank and file of unions are getting the ups that they deserve, because they're usually fucking great.
Exactly. So, they're on it. They're ready to go.
Yeah. And then, so the shit offer comes back. I was actually there on the picket on Saturday, at the protest. And it was hot and humid all fucking day. And it was so bad that it made me scared about protesting for climate change in the next 10 years. We've got to start doing it soon, because we literally won't be able to be outside in that shit for a lot of the year if we keep going the way it is. But it was sunny and a bit overcast and shit all day. And then the 10-minute span where the meeting was happening to vote on whether to end the industrial action or not, bucketed with rain, like 10 mils in 5 minutes. It was the most like just cinematic, crushing sort of like, we're done. Fuck.
Oh, yeah, look, there's so many things that jump out. And I remember one of the first questions I asked is when I'd heard that there'd been, a settlement point reached, what was conceded, because I've been within union spaces for an incredibly long time now. And what I know is that taking any action at this point in history is just, so incredibly difficult. You've both seen, a letter that I proudly posted up, which I found. It was of my maternal grandfather taking part. He was a weighbridge operator at the CUB. He took part in the industrial action, which the TWU at the time were taking in the early 70s. And it was a letter of termination due to the industrial action that people had been taking. So people were out there, people were being fired, people were holding the line, but also people had the ability to do all the above. Like they could down tools and walk out and bang. And not only could they walk out and do that, but other groups of workers could come and join them in solidarity, and the ability to just like, people just took a strike. Nowadays, with the processes of industrial action and the fact that, you have to prove that there's been good, both parties have been meeting in good faith to try and rectify the situation. If one of them, usually the bosses, is able to prove that there's been some even smidgen of bad faith on the workers' side, then these actions can be dissolved just like that by the commission. And there's so many. I guess the other part to it is there's so many restrictions. You can put in a series of actions that workers are going to take. They've got a certain period of time in which to activate those actions. And if they don't activate them in that period of time, those actions then become null and void. So you can lose actions. And I guess that's the biggest problem we've had. Like, how on earth... what the solution to this is obviously that people need to be really, really across their rights, that they need to be ready as grassroots people to actually take action and organise themselves and each other and just say, nah, enough. And start not blowing stuff up, but, amplifying.
Actually.
Look, not opposed. Everyone, anarchist cookbooks for everyone, right? But also, just knowing that the strength is actually going to be in the standing together, because the system is so heavily weighted against the workers and the workers' actions at this point in history. And that's through successive legislation going all the way back to the 80s. It's awful.
When I was there, it blew my mind that the injunction was, it had already gone through and it was awarded to Woolies. And then I think it was because of that, or maybe it was because while it was in the courts, But we were told that if we were there not as part of the protected industrial action, we cannot in any way communicate with those workers on that industrial action picket, because that could be seen as them organizing outside of what they're allowed to do now with this injunction. So like couldn't risk a chat with them, because if I don't know, hypothetically, some fucking gronks from a major newspaper were there taking photos of us from across the road, fucking losers. Like, we couldn't risk even that, even just like words of solidarity with them, let alone helping them with, like, we brought water down. And so we gave them to other people from the community as opposed to the official strike. But yeah, so let's to your main point there. The thing I keep thinking about is we are going to have to get to a point where our institutions do illegal stuff or dissolve. That's it. There is at a certain point, there is just no fucking point in having institutions follow the rules if the rules don't get us anywhere. It's already insane. All that stuff you just laid out. You need to take appropriate action in this time. You've got this many days to do it. It needs to be signed off by this people, and then a court can dissolve it. What the fuck do you mean a court can dissolve your strike? The whole point of a strike is to fuck up a workplace and stop profit from being generated. Why would that be legal? And why would we think that in any sane universe, bosses would go, ooh, that's effective, and that's going to hurt me, and I should come back to the drawing board, in the same way they did in, pre-60s era, where it did actually hurt, and it wasn't approved by the fucking courts. Because at the moment, if an action is approved by the courts, that does mean essentially that it's upheld by the police. And it also means that when it's thrown out by the courts, the cops come in and break it up. The cops were already doing that back in the day. So that's clearly where the effective protest lies. That's where effective strikes lie. And I do not understand why don't we have any of these major units that have built their reputation on being fucking militant and out on the street and tough as nails, with a rank and file base who are keen to fucking do that, to just go, oh, well, let's just go through the courts. Let's just wait a minute. Let's just see how we go. Hey, let's just write a strongly worded letter to the PM. That'll do it. The fucking... What? Why would I join a union then? Where's the excitement? Where's the fucking? Where's the excitement? Where's the result?
Yeah. I mean, mainly unfortunately, mainly the solution, and it's such a big long-term investment one, and it comes down to re-educating the public, re-educating workers on collectivity, on the fact that they have rights, that those rights have been won, that, this has been a long-term process. Like the stonemasons at Melbourne University didn't apply for appropriate action and all of that. They downed tools, marched up the street, gathered a bunch of construction buddies along the way, essentially shut down the construction of Melbourne until there was success with that one. And that's the process of collectivity. But we're also fighting too against, many, many decades now of neoliberal sort of individualistic thinking, and people don't naturally look to the collective like they used to. People will look to the legal system or, individuals taking stances or saying stuff. And until we can turn that around, any lefty who's a collectivist out there, which should be everyone, until we can turn that around and actually reinvest in collectives and community actions and all of that, and revitalize the fact that people do have power when they stand together, and these systems are challenged when there's enough people saying, nah, this is bullshit, then we can have outcomes. But it's we've had decades of damage now. It's rough. It's rough out there.
I feel like there is because when you say as well, it's we fought for it and it's a process. I think another part of the re-education is making sure people don't think that progress gets to a certain point and is locked off. Something I'm always sort of talking about is that we feel like, again, like with Howard, like we feel like Australia Day has always been the national holiday. We feel like we've always got the weekend. We feel like we've always had like sick leave, and we haven't. And on top of the fact that we haven't always had it, there are still forces that would love to take it down, but they also know that they can't show their hand too quick. Like to your point, Celeste, of like, collective action can, have an effect. The recent attempted coup in South Korea was so fucking funny because it happened overnight. Obviously, it was terrifying in some ways, but there was such a quick outcry. The unions also have just come out in South Korea being like, we're not going back to work until you quit. We're just not doing it. You fucked up. But so many people got onto the streets so quick. And there was such again, I hate to use the term, but like a vibe shift in the population that the men with tanks and guns were told to essentially, shoot, defend against their own citizens. But their citizens came out en masse. The politicians voted, and the vote was effective against guns and tanks. They didn't need to be. Those are guns and tanks. Those are very real. Those are very material things. But there is still so much energy in a collective, in a population, and in an order of things where even that prime minister and the military and everyone was like, oh yeah, it's not worth it. This will go much worse. Even if we use violence now in a selective way, we fucked up. The collective are against us. This will not work. And that's what we can get back to for sure. We just need to build little wins, which I'm going to say, like this Woolies thing, would have involved solidarity strikes or at least solidarity protesting with the picket line. We cannot wait for the one big moment where everyone agrees all at once that we all have to go on strike and everyone supports us. We have to build to it with small actions that get us small victories that a few people see the win and go, cool, I'll join the union. That gives us more people to do slightly bigger wins over and over and over and over. And I'll also fucking say, I'll just shut the fuck up and stop taking up all this time, Woolies is the best target. Yeah. Why did no politicians, why were there... correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the federal candidate by the Greens in Kooyong, Jackie, was the only person from the Greens that came down there in a dedicated fashion and was on the fucking picket as a federally connected Green. And I do not get why no one else from the Greens went down there, even just purely cynically, and went, yeah, you know what, Woolies? Fuck Woolies. Isn't that right? We hate Woolies, don't we, gang? To just build that broad-based coalition and to get some eyes on that, get some eyes on yourself being anti Woolworths. It would have won. You were there, Pingers. You're a federal candidate.
True, but yeah, we're not exactly at the Greens stage yet. But yeah, I think like, I don't know. I would really like to see, because like the Greens can mobilize people. They got a big network. If they really got behind things like this, it would actually make a difference at an industrial level. But I think, and this is my complete speculation, just seeing, like the Greens used to speak in defence of the CFMEU after the administration quite regularly, and then there was an election, and I feel like the Greens, and they haven't said anything since the election, I feel like the Greens, purely vibes-based, are doing an analysis on whether or not standing by with the unions will divide their voter base, or will it be politically expedient? Because we do know, like, it looks like it may have had a negative impact on their election. So I think they're making a calculated decision at the moment.
I mean, like Celeste and I have much more than me, like with just the Greens upper echelon versus the lower sort of group. But I don't know about that. And I mean, and I hope not, because the Greens' whole thing in my eyes is that they stand on principles rather than policy, which is to say, like, they have good policy, but the policy is guided by principles beyond something like the Labor and Liberal Party, who, like you've said a bunch of times, Pingers, will just sort of go to where they think the votes are. It's like, oh, we're outraged about this. Oh, fucking yeah, I hate that too. I don't like that as well. Whereas the Greens are the ones that will basically cop it and be like, you know what? This might not be a winner with everyone in the voting population. It might also not be the majority of what people want, but we believe it's the right thing to do, so we'll fucking do it anyway. And that's what I hope is still the calculus there. And you know, any Greens members or Adam Band, if you're listening, like stick to that, because the thing is as well, people respond to authenticity better. People don't like politicians that flip-flop on shit. They like them when there is a consistency there that they go, you know what? Yeah, I don't like the CFMU. I think what they did was bad, but I can rely on the Greens to be the pro-union party. There you go.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing, is that what's the principle? Because I feel like you would, if I was making a decision on our principle is unionism, because like I don't know what the case is at the moment, but it would kind of alienate some of the, you know, middle class doctors and all that kind of stuff in those suburbs where they're, you know, largely concentrated. So I genuinely don't think a decision has been made.
I think that what was sticking in my head, so you know, back in the olden days, the formation of the Labor Party, they came in and they were the you know, the principals and the party of the workers. Like, this was a party that sprung forth from the loins of the union movement, and has long and still claims that they're, you know, that's their base, ordinary workers, ordinary working families. Sorry about the accent. It just feels more correct if I say it like that. But you know, we have seen them sell that out, and we've seen them sell it out based on the scramble for the middle. And what was occurring to me when I was pondering all this was the danger spot for the Greens, because I think that there's probably two groups of people that ended up being swayed towards the Greens. One was, of course, the enviro activists that were there. You know, they have been spurred into action based on the very real threat of climate change, logging industries, whatever else has brought them on board. And environmental politics can actually exist across the spectrum pretty incredibly well as well. Like, you know, there's a reason why people talk about tree Tories. They exist. There are a lot of socially conservative people that do quite like the environment. So yeah, you know, part of that will filter into the Greens, but the other sort of section, or the people who've filtered into it, and definitely when I've looked at the Greens, or where I come from a traditional Labor family. Like, you know, one side of my family is working class bloody Melbourne. The other side's Aboriginal. So, you know, I was brought up in a Labor family. I'm a traditional Labor voter. But I haven't voted for the Labor Party for over 20 years. And my jumping point was the Tampa disaster, as it was for so many other people at that time. And you know, had they not provided that social justice point of difference, at least when it and had a bit of weight behind them, because they are a major minor party. They're not that dissimilar to the Democrats before them, which was about, you know, balance and keeping the bastards honest. That was about, in this race to the middle, we're going to sit here and challenge them and hold them accountable. Yeah, it's a similar sort of thing that we're seeing now with another major minor, or minor major. Which way is it, folks? We'll take a poll, actually, at the end of this episode. But yeah, you know, it's just, there's different things that are driving people towards it. But I think that generally speaking, voters are looking for a home, and particularly voters on the left. And, you know, I will divvy up my votes. I will number things left to right, you know, pretty frequently. But at the end of the day, what is likely to get me over the line, preferencing one party above another, is always going to be social justice, because that's the core of my politics. That's the core of my being. And communicating that, or at least staying consistent, and perhaps even really channeling the fact that you are appealing to the conscience. You're trying to keep that going in an environment where there is absolutely no conscience going at all. I think that's kind of important. So I don't know if I've created other thoughts or just been a little bit sort of ethereal over here with all of this. But I have seen this danger, this sort of tightrope that the Greens, I think, are currently walking at this point in time. I do hope that they do continue to appeal to a real strong social justice policy and at least be able to channel some of that and put more pressure on, because seriously, the Labor Party is never going to appeal to the social justice angle ever again. Not when it comes to holding power. Their goal is power holding.
Yeah, 100%. They're in it now for votes. I feel like you sort of like hitting at the same sort of thing where like I don't know how many of those doctors that you mentioned, Jordan, for instance, will actually fall off from the Greens if the principle leads the messaging around the unions as opposed to the political moment or the policy, right? Because, I mean, the best example is in America, every demographic shifted more for Trump, basically. And that was even though Trump had specific policies and specific things that most of them would find disagreeable. Some of them actually reported finding disagreeable. But overall, they were there. And a big part of that was because he's not establishment, quote unquote. He's going to do things differently. And I feel like some of those people will definitely fall off. The well-off people that don't like unions or don't like union thuggery or whatever. But I think a bunch of people will see a Greens party that doesn't act like Labor and Liberal and act on consistent left-wing principles and go, well, you know what? There is a strong conviction there and I appreciate what they're doing everywhere else. So I can hold my nose on this because they're so different to Labor and Liberal. They're offering such a different thing. And I think, like you said, like Celeste, that's the risk if they stop doing that and they try to appease voters first, as opposed to figuring out a way to have the best messaging, the best story for their position and their principles, rather. I'm also worried that there's a risk that the Australian Greens could end up like the German Greens and just, signing off on war contracts and nuclear powered, all that sort of shit. If listeners aren't aware, just do some quick looking on German Greens. There's a podcast called Corner Spatty, I think. I'll try and find a link in the show notes. They're very good at keeping up with German politics, and what the Greens do over there is just so fucking like centrist. We finally got a little bit of power, and we love it. So yeah, it's not great. But look, if that happens, we've got Victorian socialists to fill the void. So
or sortition. We keep threatening sortition. Yeah, let's just come back to sortition. It's been an interesting day. Clearly we've got a federal election coming up next year. Just in case anyone forgot, with the political maneuvering, with this race to the power center that we've been talking about and carrying on about, there is an election happening next year, and because this is happening, and because we do have the two major parties vying for who's going to be sitting on what side of the Green Chamber next year, Peter Dutton has, of course, come out today to say that if he is elected, PM, he will not be standing in front of the Aboriginal and the Torres Strait Islander flags when he does his media hits. I know I'm supposed to be outraged about this. I know that there's going to be members within my community, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community of Australia, that are going to be outraged by this, but I can't sit here and read, his claim and that whole sort of all of Australia should be united under one flag that has the butcher's apron in one corner and has a star constellation that features in, I think, no less than 15 or so flags across the world and can be seen by all of these countries. Like, there's nothing unique about the Southern Cross. We can just see it here like every other country in the Southern Hemisphere and some in the Northern Hemisphere. And, we use it in a flag like New Zealand does and Brazil doesn't. Anyway, So, this whole argument, we should be all united under one flag. And this is his play. This is his play for power. This is his play to try and stir up a wave of nationalism that he can hopefully surf on in to that main seat in the chamber and lead his party to victory. And I just, oh gosh, I should be annoyed about it, but if this is the best that the federal opposition is going to come up with in order to challenge Labor, then there is absolutely no way we are going to see, well, if we do see a change of government, then all of my thoughts about Australia confirmed yet again. But I just don't think that this is why? Why? Yeah. Is he riding off the wave of the outrage around pubs not doing Australia Day celebrations last week, and he's just gone, oh, geez, some got really cranky about that. Maybe I'm going to channel some of that, and it might just up my vote a bit. What's his point? What is the point of Dutton?
Back to what I was just talking about with the Greens too. Like you just said, Celeste, what is that the best strategy? Dutton, I do not know how he continued to rise in the ranks of the Liberal Party, except to think that he was just a doer. He was just a guy who put his hand up for stuff, like the nerd at the front of the class, like, oh, you forgot about our homework, Howard. And he was just there to pick up the pieces from when other people failed during their fighting. He was around through Howard. He was around in the background with Abbott Turnbull that whole time. And because of the way that the Liberal Party works, they didn't have a good setup for another type of person to come in, except for your Josh Frydenbergs and your Tim Wilsons, who were voted out because of the political uselessness of people like Dutton, who continued to get out there and said, oh, do you want just sort of small business, lower taxes, action on climate change from a business point of view? No, I'm going to bring up trans people for some reason. I'm going to bring up the flags for some reason. I'm going to tell you to kiss a cop, kiss an AFP cop. You're going to love it. I remember that video is stuck in my brain. Years and years ago, he did this weird video where he's like, if you see an AFP member.
And if you see an AFP officer at an airport when you're traveling this Christmas, please say thank you to them for the service and for the sacrifice and effort that they put in to keep you safe, to keep us all safe as we travel through the airports right across our country.
Give them a handshake and say some shit like that. Weird fucking dude. But then this announcement, I don't even think it will get the racists going. Because even they're like, well, that's not enough, man. What do you mean? And this is also the man who thought he could change his whole image by putting glasses on. He just put glasses on.
He bloody did too.
And he's just like, well, I read books. What do you want? That's his whole fucking thing. And I feel like there is a chance he will be Prime Minister. There is a chance we will get a Liberal Green coalition. Let's go. I'm manifesting. But at this rate, it is just Labor giving it to the Liberal Party at this point. They are fucking up so badly and not doing the bare minimum that surely Dutton's not going to get in if his maneuvers are announcing that he won't have some flags. And you're right, Celeste, too. It's this weird thing where it is outrageous as a concept, in isolation. It is an outrageous thing for a leader of a opposition party who might potentially be our Prime Minister to say he won't recognise and stand in front of the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander flags. They are part of our... But it's so inauthentic and obviously made for culture war outrage that it's plastic. There's nothing to it. If you're outraged by it, you're right to be. It is an outrageous statement. But if you're not outraged, neither. It's stupid as fuck. It's so old media. I haven't had a political strategic idea since 96. It's weird.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, I'm not going to jump the barricades and scratch out Dutton's eyes because he's not standing in front of the flags. I might, I would actually prefer to have him nowhere near them. But the fact of the matter is that these are recognised flags of Australia, official flags of Australia. You know, you can get them free from your local MP's office. They can only be made by a certain group of people. There's all these rules that regulate these flags now, and this isn't a political stance. It's just it is a culture war beef up in order to get. I mean, clearly he's feeling he's not getting enough media time lately, and his team have just turned to him and say, right, say something fucked because we need you on the news.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many other things to hate Dutton for, things that he has done while in power, things he wants to do if he gets power again. And those are also the things that like other people like him and want him to do. So everyone is aware of how weirdly limp and just wet-lipped this announcement is. Like, it would be embarrassing if it moved the needle at all. I do not think it will. Like, I don't think it's possible for this. Because I don't know. You said as well. You mentioned the outrage last week over a bunch of different pubs, like a chain of pubs. Was it not advertising Australia Day celebrations anymore? It was something relatively milquetoast that the media jumped on and jumped on. Politicians jumped on. Yeah, but that also didn't seem to last very long. Maybe we're too far away from Australia Day. And it's like, well, we're worried about Christmas.
Well, they didn't even do that, though, because what I was reading was that, you know, well, they're not going to stop Australia Day stuff happening at the pub. And look, they weren't going to stop that anyway. The fact was, if people wanted to rock up and they were going to wear their ridiculous singlets or their flag capes or the pink cork hats or whatever else it is that people think makes them look Australian on Australia Day, people were just going to do that anyway. This was just a chain of very well-known pubs opting out of having official Australia Day celebrations. They're not actually booting those celebrations off. They're not doing them all of a sudden. They're actually doing exactly what they were doing before, but they just sort of, you know, they've backpedaled a little bit on the edge of their statement in order to be more acceptable. And it has just kind of died from the news cycle. But I do remember, because one of the things that occurred to me was that it was the 2nd of December when that started kicking off. And we haven't even had the full stretch of Muslims and lefties are cancelling Christmas yet. We've got to get beyond Christmas, and we've got to get through, as one of my mates said, we've got to get through that. They've already started selling hot cross buns in the lead up to New Year's, and then once January 1st kicks in, then they can start whinging about Australia Day. Like, they have no concept of process, this lot, you know. They did try and kick it off too early, I think.
I like the idea that give it a couple years and the whole thing will meld so quickly into this story that like Muslims are selling hot cross buns on Australia Day, or so, like the whole thing will just start to mush.
G'day everyone, Tom Tanaka here. My apologies that I couldn't join the gang today. Due to a minor illness on my part, you might hear I sound a bit stuffy. But in my absence, I've recorded this thing, which is probably more useful to you than anything else said on today's episode. And I say that without a trace of shade towards my co-hosts, who I love a lot. Also, without any knowledge of anything else said on today's episode. I'm just that confident of, you know, the utility of the stuff I'm about to tell you. What is it? Well, I'm going to give you a list of AI Christmas music that I've compiled for you to block in your major music streaming platform. But along the way, I'm also going to have a bit of light fun by touching on what I think are the two most effective political assassinations in modern history. The first is the 2022 assassination of former Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. Right? Abe was in Nara to make a political campaign speech in 2022, as I say, when 41-year-old Tetsuya Yamagami approached him with a homemade improvised firearm, and he shot him twice. Yamagami was immediately tackled to the ground and arrested, but after several hours of treatment, Abe died in the hospital. During the weeks and months that followed, it came to light that Yamagami was what's known in Japan as a Shukyo Nisei. That is a second-generation child survivor of one of the many cults and cult-like political groups that abound in Japan. You think you don't know about them, but you do. You know about Aum Shinrikyo. There are many, many besides that are a lot less notorious to the outside world, certainly, than that. These groups abound, and they've created a lot of tension and unhappiness in Japan, in part because they've created a lot of devastation for Japanese families who often lose life savings and members of their loved families to these groups. This is Yamagami's story, having grown up with a mother who's completely lost to the right-wing Unification Church that long sponsored the political career of Shinzo Abe. This is why Yamagami targeted Shinzo Abe. What was so effective about the assassination of Abe was not only in the way that he became a complete folk hero after it happened, with many Japanese people quickly expressing widespread sympathy for him. The sympathy led to renewed calls for investigation into the church status of the Unification Church, which essentially gave it a massive financial benefit and cloaked its political interests. In fact, after some time, the Japanese government relented and they did investigate the church. And in the end, they actually recommended that it be deregistered as one. In short, Yamagami, against all expectations, achieved all of his political goals by assassinating Abe. Back to AI Christmas music. It's in many of the most popular Christmas playlists, and it appears, from my layperson calculations, to earn its artists, quote unquote, hundreds of thousands of dollars every season. And I fucking hate it, because it's just another part of the ever-encroaching minefield of dishonest AI slop, behaviour modification and guerrilla marketing that is the modern internet. And I hate it. I hate it all. After the US election, tech writer Ed Zitron, who I really, really love, I think is so worth reading, raged about this destruction of the quality of digital life that we've all come to experience over many years now. He said, "It's time to accept that most people's digital life fucking sucks, as does the way that we consume our information, and that there are people directly responsible. Be as angry as you want at Jeff Bezos, but don't forget Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Sundar Pichai, Tim Cook, and every other single tech executive that has allowed our digital experiences to become rotted out husks dominated by algorithms. These companies are not bound by civic duty or even a duty to their customers. They have made their monopolies and they'll do whatever keeps you trapped in them." So I acknowledge that Christmas music is not by far the most egregious use of AI. Generative AI is everywhere, and it has fundamentally demonstrated its uselessness unless as a thief of your time, your original work, and your livelihood. I'll tell you what I think the most egregious use of AI is at the moment, and I think you probably agree, because you will have just probably, if you're like me, recently learned about it. It's the fact that an AI algorithm is being used in America to determine whether people on United Healthcare medical insurance are allowed to tap into their insurance to not die in the American healthcare system. That algorithm is designed to keep the approvals low, to keep the profits up, and for the unlucky, pain and death awaits. This is why the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson is arguably the second most effective political assassination in modern history. Obviously, it's early days yet, so we're yet to see the full consequences for politics, for insurance, and so on and so forth. But it seems right now that across the political divide, the shooting has been, if not outright celebrated, then at least well understood to have exposed the inhuman machinations of big corporations gambling with the cost of human life by using AI. We're obviously all really fucking sick of it. And we're so sick of it that many of us are publicly cheering on murder. And I don't think that's a testament to a degraded political discourse like many lib and conservative outlets seem to be saying it is. I actually think it's a testament to how much we know our lives, our real lives, our digital lives, and our lives under big tech have waned and fallen out of our control. And we've all had enough. Anyway, the list of AI Christmas music I've uncovered is as follows. Sleigh Bell. That's SLEIGHBELLE. The Humbugs. Dean Snowfield. Fuck off, Snowfield. What's next, cunt? Robert Santa. Snowdrift Sleighs. Daniel and the Holly Jollies. And North Star Notesmiths. Am I implying in the aforementioned bit about political assassinations that you should now go out and murder the people behind this AI slop ruining my Christmas? No, not really. Don't worry. Don't even know who they are. I'm just letting you know so that you can go in and select don't like this artist or something similar in your music streaming app and avoid hearing it in the future. Why don't you join me in fending off a bit more depressing AI slop out of our Christmas season? Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Radical Online Leftist Pipeline podcast. If you want to shoot us an email, you can do so, alpdotgov@proton.me. That is the real email address. Feel free to send us some emails. Our theme music is Capo Dog by Al Carlson. You can find his music everywhere. And the art is by Sam Warman, who is our Members Be Unlimited on Instagram. Thanks for listening.